JRPGs are some of my favorite games. I wasted so much of my childhood playing through every JRPG for every platform. The Legend of Dragoon, Jade Cocoon, Breath of Fire 4, Final Fantasy VIII, Golden Sun, Chrono Trigger, Suikoden II, Tales of Phantasia, Star Ocean, Till the End of Time. My god, some of my favorite games were released so many decades ago that most people just don't even recognize them anymore. And while the frequency with which JRPGs are now released is substantially slower than in the past, there is still a lot of very impressive looking titles on the horizon. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Every upcoming JRPG that I'm looking forward to in 2022, games that will 100% be releasing this year, that will be filled with our favorite waifus, our favorite husbandos, and some of the best looking anime visuals in the genre. Quick shout out to my patrons over on Patreon, by the way. Since this channel is not monetized, every patron counts. Now we're going to tackle this month by month, starting with Eiyuden Chronicle Rising. Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is the prelude to Eiyuden Chronicle, a kickstarted JRPG that is touted as being the spiritual successor to the Suikoden franchise, one of my favorite JRPG franchises of all time. This is a side-scrolling narrative-driven action RPG that features several characters that you'll encounter in the game, along with some of the town construction that the franchise has become widely known for. Eiyuden Chronicle Rising is launching onto the PS4, the PS5, the Xbox Series S, X, Xbox One, Switch, and PC platforms on May 10th. Now, as a massive fan of the Digimon franchise, seriously, I grew up on the Digimon anime, the Digimon World games. This is a game that I am eagerly anticipating. Supposedly, Digimon Survive is going to put a slightly darker spin on the intellectual property. Unlike traditional Digimon games, Digimon Survive is going to feature various different choices that will lead to a variety of different endings, including death, both for you as the main character and potentially other characters and Digimon. From the gameplay released so far, it looks as though Digimon Survive is going to take the form of a turn-based strategy game akin to something like Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem, as opposed to the specific gameplay types of its predecessors. Digimon Survive is launching onto the PS4, the Xbox One, Switch, and PC platforms on July 29th. Or at least I hope it is. It's been delayed so many times over the last couple years that if this game successfully releases, it's going to be a miracle. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is by far my most anticipated JRPG of 2022. I am an enormous fan of the first game with Shoken Fiora, and while I thought Rex was a horrendous character in the sequel, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the game itself was a fantastic addition to the intellectual property. And man, did Rex get lucky at the end of the game. Holy crap. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 seems to offer much of the same the franchise has become known for. Incredibly attractive characters, flashy combat, albeit I will admit here that Xenoblade Chronicles had much better combat than Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I'm hoping Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has superior combat to both of its predecessors. It's going to feature a world that's much larger than both games before it, and a narrative that connects all three. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is launching exclusively onto the Switch on July 29th. And honestly, I wish it wasn't. I wish it released onto every major gaming platform. I can only imagine the pinnacle of success that this game would attain. I actually did a dedicated video on Soul Hackers 2 recently, discussing how I was excited for the game. Having never played the first title in the series, I honestly had no idea what to expect, other than the knowledge that it was somehow connected to the Persona series of games. Soul Hackers 2 features turn-based combat, deploying 4 different characters at once, each with their own unique abilities and uses. Honestly, this is exactly what you'd expect out of a traditional JRPG, and it does not look like it's going to disappoint. This is easily one of the darker titles in this list, and admittedly also has some, well, rather attractive looking characters. You gotta love Japan and their outfits, man. They truly never disappoint. Soul Hackers 2 is launching onto the PS4, the PS5, the Xbox One, the Xbox Series S, X, and PC platforms on August 25th. Now, this is one of the more interesting titles as it takes someone from our world, our reality, and throws them directly into a fantasy world. Honestly, I'm a fan of Square and their games. I always have been, but this just seems a little random. Like, don't get me wrong, it looks visually stunning. This is by far the most amazing game in this list aesthetically, and I mean, it's developed by Luminous Productions. This is the same team behind Final Fantasy XV, so it stands to reason as to why it looks this good. But a good looking game does not necessarily equate to a good game overall. It features some very fast, very fluid action combat, a narrative from Square, so you know it's either going to be incredible or absolute garbage. There's really no middle ground here. Forspoken is launching onto the PS5 and PC platforms on October 11th. Now, after waiting for, like 3 years, 4 years, the Granblue game that we've all been anticipating is finally almost within our grasp. Granblue Fantasy Relink is going to feature a massive open world, similar in scope and scale to Xenoblade Chronicles, admittedly, which is never a bad thing to be compared to. It has some very fast, some very fluid action combat with some absolutely stunning special effects, but you know, not too over the top like you see in some games, or specifically in some action games. It's going to feature a single player narrative with multiplayer side content, grinding, world bosses. This is the only multiplayer compatible JRPG in this list thus far, I believe. Granblue Fantasy Relink is launching onto the PS4, the PS5, and PC platforms, Steam specifically, at an undisclosed point this year, likely towards the fourth quarter, if I'm being entirely honest with myself. And finally, Star Ocean: The Divine Force. Man, Star Ocean Till the End of Time is one of my all-time favorite JRPGs. You either love this game or you hate it, that's it. The game absolutely shook the very foundations of the entire Star Ocean franchise and upset so many players, but just as many players were in awe that Trius would do something so innovative, so different, which is why it went down as arguably the best Star Ocean game other than the second story. Much like Granblue Fantasy and Xenoblade Chronicles, Star Ocean: The Divine Force is going to feature a massive open world to explore. It's going to have some great looking action combat, but the main character looks freaking stupid, like really freaking stupid. He looks like Leomon from Digimon just shaved. It's really that bad. Everyone else looks incredible though, including the world. Star Ocean: The Divine Force is launching onto the PS4, the PS5, the Xbox Series S, X, Xbox One, and PC platforms at an undisclosed point this year. I'd say we're looking at something closer to the third, maybe the fourth quarter, definitely. And that's it. That's every good JRPG that is coming out this year. We have a solid list, games to keep us busy most months. I'm more excited than I have been in years to have this many incredible looking games to play. Now, for those of you that are interested in the best gacha games coming this year, completely unrelated to JRPGs, click this video right here.